continue from there, where the story about the 7 out of 8 suspected robbers. Now we know from the other information coming out that they are clearly not, and that they are very innocent people, law-abiding citizens of the Ashanti region who suffered this unfortunate thing. That this is a story I'm just reading, just a headline for you. The lead sentence: that 7 out of the 8 suspected robbers whose attack reportedly led to the death of a police officer with the SWAT unit of the Ashanti Regional Police Command have been gunned down. The deceased officer, Lance Corporal Daniel Teku, was on duty with his colleague, Lance Corporal Eric Nsia, when 8 masked men attacked the vehicle they were traveling in at Ayirebi Krom near Manso, Nkwanta, on July the 11th. The bodies of the 7 persons have been dispatched to the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital morgue. Police have postponed an intended press briefing on the incidents on Wednesday, July 18, 2018. Now, so government just issued a statement on that. What's government saying about this?
Yeah, Samson, I think I should establish that this is also another situation that is not welcoming. It's quite an obnoxious act. I don't want to be prejudgmental to say either the police or the people who are deceased now were at fault. But I think whichever way it goes, we have lost lives. I don't know how you legal luminaries want to put it, but it amounts to some kind of execution.
You mean you lawyers? Yeah. I'm a lawyer.
Teach me how to go about it. Okay. And today I'm with my uncle Kokubako. Okay. I'm not a street lawyer, but I'm a boardroom lawyer. So it's not the best. When I heard the news, it has some antecedents though. We are told that 2 policemen earlier were killed, and the people, 7 other people who were also killed subsequently as a result of the police response to the killings of their officers, were thought to have been part of the gang that went to kill the 2 policemen. So that is the history and the background to the whole thing.
1 was killed.
1 policeman was killed. Okay, but 2 were shot, I'm told.
Right.
So it's like the police were trying to respond. The understanding I also have is that the response by the police did not happen the same day that the 2 were shot. So there should have been some time lag for the police to have reflected. You know, sometimes when something happens to you and you take some quick action, it can be involuntary or on the spur of the moment because of anger and other things. You can take certain actions that later you will regret. But when there's a time lag for you to have reflected on the matter and then say that this is the strategy we want to adopt to apprehend the people who committed that crime against the police, it shouldn't take the kind of force that it took, leading to the death of 7 people. So it is something that is not a good news. And I think that if we continue to have these acts happening within our system, it casts some doubt on the level of capacity of our police force, and also raises issues on whether or not they are well equipped in terms of emotional staff and whatever to be able to protect us the way we want them to protect us. So I'm told that the Minister of Information, government has issued a statement to the Minister of Information. In fact, yesterday, the IGP, the Minister for Information, Dr. Hamid Mustafa, the Minister for Zongo Development, the Ashanti Regional Minister, Honorable Simose Mensah, and a few other government delegations, the KMA boss, and then the Asawase Municipal Chief Executive and others, went to Asawase to commiserate with some of the bereaved family and also talk to the leadership of the Zongo community, and they also went to Otumfuo to visit Otumfuo. In the statement that government has issued, government has expressed its regret on these actions and what happened, and also
it's a very small statement. So let me read. It's a very short one, and it's issued July the 21. It says that government statement on the death of 7 men from the Asawase Asawase Zongo community at Manso, Nkwanta, in response to an armed robbery attack in Manso, Nkwanta in the Ashanti region, in which 2 policemen were shot. Police operations resulted in the shooting and death of 7 young men from Asawase at Manso, Nkwanta. This has subsequently led to acts of violence by some youth of Asawase Zongo. Government expresses its condolences to the bereaved families of the 7 young men and 2 policemen. Government yesterday sent a delegation led by the Minister for Inner City and Zongo Development, Honorable Abubakar Sadiq Boniface, and including the Minister for Information, Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, the Inspector General of Police, David Asante Pietu, and the Ashanti Regional Minister, Honorable Simon Osei Mensah, and the Municipal Chief Executive for Asakore Mampong, Honorable Ali Duseidu, to the Zongo community, where they met with the youth, imams, and Zongo chiefs. The delegation consoled the bereaved families and assured them of government's commitment to establish the truth of the incident. Since the police and the families of the 7 young men have different versions of the occurrence, government has decided to set up an independent committee to investigate the matter. Once again, government calls on members of the Zongo community to exercise restraint while the matter is being investigated. And this is issued by Curtis Perry Kwabla Okujeto, Deputy Minister, Information.
So I think that is in order. I think what the people are looking for is justice. And for the justice to come, there ought to be some inquiry into the whole matter. And I'm happy it's going to be an independent committee.
Okay.
And in this case, I know a lot of people are not comfortable when issues involving police lead to the setup of a committee, and you have the police also being part of it. And so I don't know what the thinking of government is, but I think that the people of Asawase want to expect that there wouldn't be any conflict of interest. And so in the setup of the committee, my wish is that they don't include any practicing or serving police officers, so that people will not sit back to say that they just went around.
Let's hear what Kweku has to say about this also. And as I said, the first matter we referred to, officers or staff of the Midland Savings and Loans have been questioned, and some of them are also getting to the CID to also face questioning. The police officer was not only arrested, but he was stripped of his uniform and every other gadget that has been handed to him pending disciplinary action.
Yeah, ordinarily we expect the police, which is more or less an instrument of state power, to protect us, to ensure law and order, to make sure that even when we are wrong and we are arrested, if circumstances demand that, we are taken through due process in consonance with the Constitution's provisions on human rights, as well as our commitment to the UN Charter on Human Rights. This is not new, that's true, but there was a time that was rampant, many times, that we had police shooting left, right, center, killing innocent citizens who were demonstrating or even just protesting, you know. Then most times, those days, they used to use the rationalization of stray bullets and all that. You know, when they had to use rubber bullets, they would use live bullets and all that. We equipped them with anti-rout equipment, and they were not using them properly. We've come a long way. I think over the years, we've had an improvement in that situation. I'm not saying totally absent in terms of police infractions. But here we are again, dealing with this situation. Yes, I'll be unable to interrogate the circumstances in terms of the period that the thing happened. I wasn't there. We've had all sorts of reports, so that's why there's really the need for the inquiry, an independent inquiry. That's the emphasis, you know. So it means that we are all at this stage exercising some level of caution and circumspection, awaiting an established inquiry to bring out the facts.
But the thing though now is that it does appear that the groundswell of public opinion now appears to be against the police on the killing of the 7, because they feel that because their colleague was killed, this was sort of vengeance, and they went in without allowing, you know, due process and just shot and killed them.
I agree. That's predictable, and that is to be expected. But the sentiments and things are no substitute for science. That's why we're asking for an inquiry. Otherwise, we should stop here and find the police guilty straight away, if it's just sentiments. And sentimentally, yes. Why? I feel for the dead. I feel for the bereaved families. So left that alone, my judgment, value judgment, will go in their favor. But why do we have due process? Why do we have law? Why do we have institutions to investigate matters? So that's why we are back to where we are. That fortunately the government has agreed in principle, set up an independent committee or whatever of investigation, and let's go through the process. There's only one thing, and it's a reality. It's difficult for me how to handle it. I listen to people talking, and you see there's the religious, sometimes communal element, you know, the Zongo community, Muslims, and this. You don't careful if you don't handle those things well, even in terms of communication. It inflames passions in a different way, so that it's no rationality. People are not listening. We should be very careful as going forward dealing with these things. It's not the first time. It happened in the last couple of years. Anytime you touch the ethnic or ethnocentric or religious element, you are not careful, you are going to have difficulties and challenges. So in our communication, I'm pleading for people to be a bit, you know, careful in how we use the language and go about it.
But these facts, as far as this issue is concerned, the facts as they go, do you find that there would have been any justification at all for the police to straight away go shoot and kill them?
The problem is that I wasn't there. You and I were not there, to quote Baunia. You and I were not there. In terms of the operations, we're not there. That's the key point. Okay? And I'm being honest with you. I do not know. Did the people fire at the police and the police were returning fire? Forensics.
They said they retrieved 4 AK-47
Did they fire? They had weapons? I don't know. Let's take the police word for it for a moment. Did they fire? If they fired bullets, there will be evidence in terms of forensic examination, unless somebody goes to clean the place up and throw away the evidence. But we have to, that's why the committee is important. And I'm sure it's going to be a committee that has experts as well. Human rights, people oriented towards human rights, but people with also professional expertise in terms of some of these issues, so that we can come to the bottom of it. Okay, I do not want to prejudge. I'm sentimentally for the dead and the bereaved families. That's true. I feel it. 7 at a go is not a joke. And because we have instances of the police itself having made such mistakes before. Over the period of, there was a time, like 1997, one Reginald Populampo, young boy, he was about to enter the University of Development Studies. Okay. And the police were chasing the vehicle, claiming it were made up of armed robbers, and they claimed they were shooting at the tires. They ended up shooting at the passengers. And this young man died. Eventually, investigations showed that the police were wrong. The guys were not armed robbers, they were not running away to anywhere, and yet the police classified them as such and shot them. The other investigations that brought about nothing at all, which led to lack of public confidence in the police. We ought not to go back to those years. And we can ensure we don't go back when such investigations are properly done with some integrity, and eventually we are all satisfied. Okay. But operationally, when the thing was happening, you and I were not there. So it's difficult for me to deal with those aspects. Okay.
Yeah. As the families are accusing the police of planting the guns that they say they retrieved from them. Well, the people they shot. Because they say that these guns they retrieved include the guns that belong to the officers that were shot by the civilians.
Well, I think no matter what you look at, how you look at it, it's a very sad development. Of course, these are very difficult times for the bereaved family. But don't forget that even though we have to appeal to the youth to hold themselves in check, I think that I am happy with the team that the government sent, because I know Sadiq Boniface is very familiar with Asawase and the youth, and he has quite a lot of respect among the Zongo community. So to send one of their own helps quite a lot. But we also have to understand that only last year the same community suffered a similar fate. If you recall, the Honorable Muntaka had cause to make a statement on the floor when 2 youth in Asawase were arrested, and apparently the police had sent them to go and discover other suspects, and they didn't return with them. They returned dead. You recall, last year it happened. And then to have this second one, obviously you can appreciate the difficulty of the community in understanding their fate in the hands of the police. But be it as it may, calm heads must prevail in order that we find a way to deal with similar situations in the future. The committee's work would not only be to establish the truth, but to make far-reaching recommendations to the police council in order to improve the way they handle some of these matters. Of course, like Kweku is saying, we don't know whether at the scene some exchanges took place. But one thing that is very striking is the swiftness with which the police respond to matters like that when one of their own is involved, and the laxity when the person involved is not a police officer.
Okay.
There are very serious deaths that have occurred in the hands of armed robbers. And you'll be amazed that sometimes the police will ask you, but if you don't know them, how can we arrest them? And yet in this instance, they know them. We have had instances where when one of their own is the victim, we have found the swiftness with which they have looked for justice. They shouldn't be creating the impression that they are creating a class society for themselves. Then when it is them, hell must break loose and they must find the people. And in some instances, mete out instant justice. But when it is somebody else, then every day we are still conducting investigations.
Okay.
And those investigations almost invariably end up being conducted on the desk in the offices. They don't even go to the field. So all this is to say that the police service must redouble their efforts to ensure their relationship with the civilian community is improved.
You're right.
And that we have the level of confidence that we have in them, said that when once in a while they make an error, we have reason to look to the improved confidence and trust that we have in them to say that this is an error. But it is very difficult at this point in time to be hearing some of these because they are very troubling. And these can destabilize a whole community and can create a conflict between the police service that are supposed to protect us and we ourselves. And when we are up in arms against the people who are protecting us, then you can imagine the kind of society that we would have. So I'm actually praying that yesterday I was in touch with Honorable Muntaka to find out what the situation was. He said it was a bit tense, but I'm hoping that
tempers will calm down.
They'll work towards improving the environment, and for us to work towards giving confidence to the people that we'll get to the bottom of this.
Right. So I gather that all of you are optimistic and are hoping that the investigations by the independent committee will bring some real, results.
And it should be fast.
It should be fast. Yeah. Okay. It should be fast. Okay. Thank you very much. And most of your comments that have come in so far, just on the first issue and taking on the bank, the savings and loans company, and also asking for speedy action. Particularly, most of you don't want to believe the statement that the bank issued. You say that apology is an apology of an apology itself. So this is the statement the Midland Savings and Loans issued. They said that they condemned in uncertain terms the act of brutality meted out to a customer by a security officer at one of their branches. And they said, we wish to render an unqualified apology to the customer in question and the general public for the uncivilized act. And then report said they had reported the matter to the police for the necessary action to be taken to ensure their client gets justice. We want to assure the public that we are an institution that really cares about the welfare and safety of our customers. Well, but this is a woman who has spoken to the media, and at the time she was spoken to, that was yesterday in the night. That's how many hours after the incident she had not been to a police station. If a report had been made, I suppose that she would have been invited and her statement would have been taken by that time. At least by that time, no statement had been taken, and she had no idea that anything was going to happen by way of any investigation. So people are really taking at them and not agreeing. Then this one says, per the woman's narration, I suspect so strongly that the bank is bankrupt. How can you be chasing 270 for 1 week? That's the woman's narration, that she was chasing this for 1 week. I'll take a break. When I return, I'll read more of your messages on this issue to you, a lot of them that you have sent in. We'll be right back.